This guy, by the way, is super dead.
Hey, guys.
Also, I take back what I said about these people grifting. I think these people are just crazy. Holy shit.
This is a video update on Dad's health, as well as a much longer portion of information about what he's suffering from, what a lot of people are suffering from, unfortunately, and what my experience with these issues was. These updates are not fun for me. They're really stressful, and I would have updated you guys sooner, but he's still been really sick, and he got worse over the last few months, and I'm 25 weeks pregnant, and I wasn't able to record anything without weeping the whole time until this week, apparently. And it stresses out my whole family to talk about it online, and there's no point in adding stress to an already stressful situation, except that because we're public, Dad in particular, it's also stressful not talking about it because then rumors get started, and then that's all people wonder about. So, here goes.
So he's dead.
Dad's been suffering from an old neurological injury that's more recently been causing akathisia.
Uh-oh.
Akathisia is the worst thing I've ever seen anyone go through. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. We talked about it in 2020 and 2021 when he experienced it after clonazepam injured him. And I'll explain why it's an injury in a bit.
Okay.
I had a very brief experience with akathisia with symptoms that were extremely horrifying, but not as severe as his when I went through antidepressant withdrawal from Lexapro. That was just over 10 years ago.
What is akathisia or whatever she's talking about?
You don't... Seriously?
No, I have no idea.
I don't know. Akinesia is the complete or partial loss of voluntary muscle movement.
Yeah, doesn't sound good.
Doesn't sound good at all.
Experience, like the withdrawal period that was really severe, lasted 2.5 years for me, where I was nearly disabled. This was kind of before I had a public thing going on. That's when I just had a blog. I've linked a bunch of papers below about everything I'm going to talk about so that people watching can get scientific background information about what this is, because it's not talked about nearly enough for how catastrophic it is. In my opinion, psych med injuries and psych meds as a whole should be considered a national emergency, given 1 in 6 Americans, or possibly more depending on the stat, is on one of these medications. And long-term use appears to cause mitochondrial dysfunction that manifests.
Just as a heads up, I think I've said this before, but like anytime somebody brings up mitochondrial, metabolic, mold, oftentimes ketogenic or carnivore diets, they're always about to tell you the most you've ever heard in your entire life. It's always the case.
As a neurological injury. I'll get into more of that in a bit too. Akathisia is a side effect that's way more common than people know, usually caused by psychiatric medications, although other medications can sometimes cause it, and so can sudden cessation from those medications. That's a huge trigger. So like suddenly stopping one of the medications that can also cause it. And sometimes people with Parkinson's can experience it too. It is intolerable discomfort that makes people want to crawl out of their skin. It's a neurological injury, really.
My face when you're rediscovering modern psychology. Did you know that if you suddenly stop taking a like SSRI or SNRI, that it could have really bad effects? Did you know that? Anybody know that? Anybody ever hear that before?
A lot of people don't survive it, and there's no quick fix, although I'll go into how we've dealt with it before. Without videotaping me sobbing, and it seems like a bunch of my sadness this week has turned into anger, which is actually at least more enjoyable for me.
You looked up the wrong disorder, by the way. Akathisia is not akinesia. Which one did I look up? Wait. Akinesia, Greek for immobilization or immobility, primarily refers to the Greek digital procedure for declaring a vehicle inactive to avoid road taxes via the My Car platform. I don't think it's this. Wait. Akathisia, or akathisia, a movement disorder characterized by an intense, uncontrollable urge to move and a subjective feeling of severe inner restlessness. Oh, often caused by antipsychotic medications. Okay.
Like in Footloose?
I don't know. I haven't seen that
Probably.
movie.
Me, but
Good one.
without posting a video of me sobbing, I don't know how to describe how bad it is in words, but I'm going to take a stab at it. You guys could look up videos of other people suffering with it if you want to. It's catastrophic. Before I get into it, let me be super clear. Dad has not been on a psych medication since January 2020. This recent flare-up of neurological symptoms wasn't due to new medications. That's partly why we had no idea what was going on for about 6 months. We went to specialists, obviously, and it was misdiagnosed repeatedly, which is super common. Then he got pneumonia and sepsis, and obviously that's a whole thing to recover from too.
Jesus.
And dangerous, you know. This year's just been
Wait.
then he got pneumonia and sepsis. That's partly why we had no idea what was going on for about 6 months. We went to specialists, obviously, and it was misdiagnosed repeatedly, which is super common. Then he got pneumonia and sepsis, and obviously that's a whole thing to recover from too. And
do healthy people normally get severe pneumonias, or is that almost always like a secondary infection or secondary from some other like surgery or big thing? I don't know why the fuck I'm asking, Chad. I need to have, do we have Dr. Flares? Oh no, we do have Dr. Flares. Motherfucker.
We do.
Okay.
this year's just been terrible. This recent flare-up that started last August was likely due to the stress of both of his parents, my grandparents, dying last year, moving countries, selling his home, and mold exposures, which was enough to trigger a recurrence of neurological symptoms.
Not the mold exposures.
Like what he experienced in 2020, 2021, something we obviously didn't think was possible after 5.5 years away from these psych medications. But
community-acquired pneumonia isn't uncommon, definitely more common than sick leave. Community-acquired, does that mean opportunistic infection? Does that mean a bacteria that's already in your body, or what does community-acquired mean? Community-acquired just means it's gotten outside of a hospital. Oh, so what, the hospital's not in the community, bruh?
I've talked...
You differentiate between nosocomial, hospital acquired, and community acquired. No, what does it mean, Mutin?
No comprende.
Oh, you speak Spanish now?
And something we obviously didn't think was possible after 5.5 years away from these psych medications. But I've talked to psychiatrists who say they have patients that experience...
So psych med's bad now?
Well, whoa, there's more than that. Meds and mold, Mutin.
This. This has been unbelievably hard on my family. Every day for the last year has been hell. I haven't been posting podcasts regularly online because until a few days ago, I cried every single day. My brother's stressed out. My mom is stressed. I mean, it's impacting so many people. And of course, my dad, you know. Mom's, thank goodness, such a strong person. And thank God for faith. If it weren't for my dad and our love for him and the strength of our family and how we've been through so many health problems, you almost adapt. Now, you don't because it's too awful. But like, we have got good communication skills and we're closer, if anything, now. Otherwise, this would have just crushed us. I've certainly been walking around in a state of panic for almost a year now.
Jesus.
Pregnancy hormones definitely don't help that. And then to make matters worse, I don't even want to mention this really because I don't want to give it any attention. But
you will.
Some journalist online reached out to me trying to pin Dad's symptoms on stem cell treatments, which is so dumb it's hard to fathom. And I responded, which was stupid. You should just never respond to a journalist. But I was like, hey, I really appreciate you looking into doctors, but like, that's not what's going on with Dad. I'm going to talk about what's going on with Dad. But it just isn't associated with stem cells. And he ignored me. And
now, apparently they did some stem cell treatment and he got sick. Why do you think he got sick, Mr. Mutin? If it wasn't the stem cells, why do you think? What do you think she's going to say?
I would blame God. This is God's plan.
Okay.
Obviously.
Wrong, but we'll see.
Mold.
Anyway, that kind of thing is...
How, mold? From the stem cells?
It was mold. Yep. Moldy stem cells.
Okay. You're close.
Annoying, obviously. So Dad had stem cell IVs over the years a couple times to see if they can help with neurological pins and needles and pain and like sensitivities and things. And I had mentioned in one of my videos that last summer in June, he had a stem cell IV from a specialist. This is a specialist I don't know. He was like hooked up with him from one of his friends, a great specialist, but it's not someone I'm connected to. He stayed in a moldy hotel for that treatment. And
Boom. I knew it. I knew it was mold and
It
stem
was a
cells,
moldy
man.
hotel. Ah, moldy hotel, guys. Come on.
that brought back symptoms. It wasn't the stem cell IV. He's had hordes of those. And trying to link the stem cell IV in June
Hordes
to sepsis from pneumonia in October is insane. Anyway, sepsis happens within days of an infection. So not only are we dealing with missing my dad, pregnancy for me, taking care of him, and being really sad, but we also have to deal with morons on the internet.
And mold.
So that sucks.
And mold.
The problem this year likely was that because we didn't know stress and mold exposure, stress really too, could
And
re-trigger
mold.
old neurological injuries.
And
it was
stress.
misdiagnosed a bunch, and then medications and supplements that were used by a few of the doctors in hospitals worsened symptoms.
What's your opinion on Trump supporters celebrating the strait being reopened? How am I supposed to answer that?
It's not open.
What is my opinion on it? What do you want me to say?
What is your opinion on?
What is my opinion on? What am I supposed to say to that?
Enough that it got to the point where we were like, oh, we know what akathisia is. Oh no. So now that we know what it is and have proper doctors, it can be carefully healed again, like it has before.
Yes.
And it is. So thank God for that.
Thank God.
It's just horrifying, and it's so infuriating that these sensitivities, this damage that can cause severe symptoms like this, can last for so long after stopping psych meds and then apparently be re-triggered. People online, this is another thing I'm frustrated about. If I come off as like frustrated in this, I apologize. Like I said, I've probably tried to channel. Oh no. Okay.
Oh, mold in the room.
Jesus.
I was like, I can do this without
Shut
dying.
up.
I've probably tried to channel.
He's dying, Mooten. Great. Now you've made her upset. Good job, Mooten.
Yeah. Moldy room.
Good job, Mooten.
Wow. Well, I'm not channeling very well right now, but I've been trying to channel my
She could have edited this out.
like
by the way.
sadness because I've been so sad into anger
Editing out the humanity, Mooten.
because I'm tired of being sad. But this like neurological injury, calling it an addiction, is so stupid. Dad doesn't fall into that category. We've made that clear so many times. He quit smoking and drinking when he was 27. He just isn't that. Instead, he falls into the unfortunately common category of people who were prescribed psych meds long term.
By the way, if you want to live the out, one of the reasons why I've heard it said, I don't know if there's a psych manual that lists this, but one of the reasons why they call addiction a disease is because addiction, there is a level of like personal culpability or moral failing that people will ascribe to people that have addiction issues, right? So one of the reasons why I've heard to like talk about it in terms of it being a disease is because it just makes it easier to separate it from yourself and then to deal with a thing and to view it that way, rather than like every time I give in to said addiction, it's a personal moral failing, I'm a bad person. And it's funny to watch her wrestle with this here because like, I was not an addict. He was just prescribed medication that he took too much of that caused injuries to him that he couldn't stop taking because of the medication. But he's not a goddamn addict. He's not an addict. It's like, okay, Jesus.
The unfortunately common category of people who were prescribed.
Destiny, in the emergency department, we call this the triad of crazy. If they check in with toxic mold exposure, fibromyalgia or lupus or chronic Lyme disease, we put the patient in a psych room. There's no way that you just auto psych room these people. I don't believe you, but
I would.
cute.
Prescribed psych meds long term. And it's not like they were prescribed for no reason. Like severe, crippling, life-ruining depression, the kind where you can't get off the couch for 30 years, runs in my family. Okay.
Wait, I have not seen this before. Maybe we'll watch this afterwards. There's a video about the guy who gave Peterson
Mold.
his stem cell treatments.
It's not the kind of depression you can normally diet and exercise away. Like people like to say that. They like to look at depressed people and go, why don't you eat better and exercise more? And it's like, I'm in hell. Like, you think that's going to help?
Dang.
Although obviously that was before we knew about only eating meat, which did help.
Sorry, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny.
But
It's
in
not
a
funny.
really
Shut up.
complicated way. Like people didn't, who's going to guess that? So it wasn't something you could get rid of from cutting processed foods, for instance. Myself, my dad, my grandpa, my great-grandpa had it. My great-grandpa was left on a doorstep, so I can't imagine he came from a very stable family. Ugh. Okay, I have a Kleenex now. So where was I? Depression.
talking about
So
only eating meat.
when Dad started to be badly impacted by depression in the 90s, and he said he had it since he was a kid. He was impacted enough that he was having a hard time lecturing. He took an SSRI. We were told it was a genetic serotonin problem and antidepressants were basically a vitamin for a serotonin deficiency, which is still what people are told, even though that has been completely debunked. And when I started having symptoms when I was a kid of OCD, suicidal thoughts, extreme anxiety, anger, my psychiatrist, who was assigned to kids with autoimmune disorders, like so many people with autoimmune disorders are on psych meds, put me on Celexa at the time, and that was eventually changed to Lexapro.
For the people who can't take this seriously enough to follow closely, is she arguing that this is all caused due to psych meds he stopped taking years ago? Yes, that and mold and autoimmune disease. It's always like, these people always have like autoimmune diseases are fun because I'm going to say like they're not well understood. We don't really know how to cure them, and the immune system is just unbelievably complex. So autoimmune diseases are like a really good kind of like hiding place for these kinds of people to claim they've got like random autoimmune disorders or diseases, and they're flaring up at random points in time, and they're brought on by very kind of like ambiguous things like stress, and which could be anything, and they come and go, and you can't like see them under a microscope. So it's always like shit like this, yeah.
And they helped a lot initially. I thought they saved my life for years, like a life from hellish depression. And so did Dad. 1 out of 5 or 6, like I said, people in the US is on a psychiatric medication. They're not addicts. they don't even know these medications are dependence forming because their doctors say they're not. And the dangers surrounding these medications certainly aren't well known, even now.
Like I just
would she call a person who drinks coffee an addict?
maybe, but also I don't. And again, I don't know. I don't see every doctor, and I don't know every doctor, but like I'm aware of all of this, and I've heard this all the time, that these medications can be habit forming, that like weaning on and off of them or titrating up on them, weaning off of them is like a whole ass process. Like maybe there are some doctors that literally just don't mention this at all, but I feel like it's kind of an oversimplification, but whatever.
That's a large part of the reason for this video.
I feel like I took a addiction class. I'm pretty sure addiction, it has to be like debilitating at some level.
For it to be considered an addiction? Yeah. Well, a lot of like DSM stuff is, I'd have to go and read it, but a lot of your clinical criteria will be like unable to hold a job, unable to maintain relationships, unable to do like personal hygiene, unable, like stuff like that. Yeah. What's the best book you've read in the past year? I'm trying to grow my political knowledge. I don't read anymore. I play eugenics. Okay. And then I show up at my trial hearings when I have them once a year. Readings for suckers.
I don't want to talk about it really, but it's happening and it's so bad that people need to know.
I know there are a lot of conspiracies in these circles, but real autoimmune diseases are triggered by stress, etc. They might be. I don't know, bro. Maybe not. Who the f knows? I don't know. I don't trust anything that says it's brought on by stress, but I mean, what the f do I know? Who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm going to be honest. I grew up with, I've shown pictures on stream before. You can probably find on my Facebook. I had hardcore cystic acne, horrible acne growing up when I was in high school. And I feel like that came and went on the random. God would, you know what they say, okay? The Targaryens give you acne and God flips a coin every day where he's like, I'm about to f your face up today or not. And that was it. And I tried every thing, a billion different types of anti-acne cleaners that just dried your skin out with varying percentages of salicylic acid. I tried the whole put a towel on your pillow, clean towel on your pillow every night. I tried the whole stop drinking milk, which sucks. I loved milk and milky products. None of that shit worked. The only thing that came out when I think it was when I was in high school, either came out or it came out of clinical trials, was the hardcore f you in the face, which was Accutane. But other than
Did that work for you?
I never did it, but like for the
it,
people that did
It's
it, Accutane was
huge.
that was it was like Ozempic for acne when Accutane came out. It was the first time where it was like, woo, that there's actually some, but now it's hardcore. There's some side effects and everything, but Accutane actually did shit. But I feel like I don't know.
Fix it, probably.
I felt like acne was random as fuck. When the alopecia areata shit that I have or had, or I don't know, I guess it's forever. I don't know. That made Israel shave a thing into my face. When that hit, that was not a particularly stressful time in my life at all. And my alopecia went away during the most stressful time of my life, which has been this whole court case. Like, I don't have it at all anymore. And I would say that my day-to-day stress right now is very high. Obviously, these are just anecdotal things, but I don't know. Maybe, I'm sure stress does affect it somehow. I just don't know how it comes out all the time. And I feel like it's all random at the end of the day, but it's probably not. I don't know.
Oh, because it's not.
Maybe I had mold somewhere that I just wasn't seeing. Who knows?
Yeah,
But it's
have you checked
happening.
the mold?
Yeah.
It's so bad that people need to know because it's not rare. And dependence forming, to clarify that, it's different than what people think of when they think of addiction. It means your brain changes to adapt to the medication. So if you pull it out, especially quickly, your brain can't handle it. It's not that you want to take it or enjoy taking it. It could be causing severe side effects. This is what happened with Dad. He started getting akathisia on clonazepam.
Wasn't that during your divorce? You said at the time that was probably because of stress related to that. If I said that, I made it up. No, I distinctly remember the first time I was in Toronto. I remember looking at the mirror in the hotel and I was like, if I always had some weird, I might have even typed something in the chat asking, but no, this was I don't know how to say way before my divorce, but it was definitely before like huge issues that would lead to my divorce cropped up. No, it was just random as
But pulling it out is impossible and it worsens it. It's a terrible situation. But this was
Who
6
is
years
quitting
ago,
these
you know?
meds cold turkey?
I don't know. If you do, you're going to get though.
You're
I'm sure some
retarded.
people do, but I feel like most doctors would recommend against this. Destiny, you just have no goodwill towards the man, LOL. I have more goodwill and good faith towards all of my haters than any motherfuckers ever had towards me in my entire life, okay? I've said a million times, I give Jordan Peterson credit for saying good back in the day, that he used to be genuinely pretty insightful. We've listened to some of his videos. I'll even bring up every now and then. It's like, oh, I really like what he said here, or whatever. So, you know, think what you want. Be ass pain, but I'll give people credit where credit is due.
Anyway, apparently that differentiation between
Isn't it hella delayed because hair growth cycles are very long? So maybe you had a stressful event months and months earlier before it impacted you. I don't think so, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
but this was 6 years ago, you know? Anyway, apparently that differentiation between being on a psych med and being an addict is too complicated for most people, or at least for the people complaining on the internet. But I thought it should be addressed anyway. And I'm someone
Peterson is taking benzos for his depression. He was at some point, but I don't know. I don't even know if it was prescribed for his depression or if he was abusing them or what. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know anything about the coma thing that he did in Russia. I have no clue about that. I've heard, when I say I've heard, I remember this from a House episode. I don't know how true this is, but I know in that House episode with that one girl, there is apparently some medical treatment to get yourself so that you can break an alcohol addiction, and you can do it like overnight. But there's like a severe risk where if you do that nightly detox, they'll like put you in a coma for it, and you do that detox, that it reduces your sensitivity or feeling towards alcohol. And so if you're not careful in the future, if you try to drink again, you can just instantly kill yourself by overdosing on alcohol because you're just not aware that you're even getting drunk. I don't know if there's a similar thing for benzos or whatever. I literally have no idea if that coma thing that he did was a really bad idea. I just don't know. I'm not sure.
who honestly looks at classic addicts, say heroin, and thinks they must be suffering and it's people, or at least for the people complaining on the internet. But I thought it should be addressed anyway. And I'm someone who honestly looks at classic addicts, say heroin, and thinks they must be suffering and it's a complicated issue and I feel bad for them and there's more to it, in my opinion, than someone who just took drugs and is an addict. I think there's likely physiological issues at play for classic addictions. But Dad's not in that category.
Like, I understand normatively wanting to get away from the bad label of being an addict, but also when she's like heroin, like for heroin addicts, you know, like where there's, speaking of House,
I'm
not going to remember it. There's a clinic thing where somebody asks him for something. I don't remember what it is, but he's like, these are dangerous and addicting or something like that. And he's like, well, technically everything I prescribe is, I guess. Like, generally speaking, there's going to be formula differences between drugs that you get prescribed by a doctor and street drugs you do recreationally. Oftentimes, in my slightly educated / uneducated opinion, the biggest difference is usually dosing and like when you're doing them. Recreational dosing for drugs is going to be much, much, much larger than your therapeutic doses. And sometimes it's going to be slightly different formulas in terms of what you actually get prescribed to you. But in my opinion, I think you should be really careful not to draw this huge distinction between street drugs and pharmacy drugs. Like, oh, I would never do heroin and get addicted to heroin. Like, that's like a crazy heroin. Anyway, here's my hydrocodone or whatever that I got prescribed for my wisdom teeth removal. And like, these are totally different and I could never get addicted to these. Or like I could never get addicted to abusing like Adderall or whatever. It's not like I'm on the street doing like methamphetamine or something or speed or whatever, right? Like, this is a totally different thing because it comes from a pharmacy. This is just not true, right? You should just be mindful of that, I think. Like,
well, that's usually how people get addicted nowadays, right? It's through prescription drugs. No?
For the opioid stuff, I think that was a huge issue. Yeah. But I just heard like her reluctance here to be like, my dad doesn't have addiction issues. They're drug prescription issues. It's not like he's using heroin.
Physiological issues at play for classic addictions. But Dad's not in that category. So now I guess I can talk about what akathisia felt like to me. And when Dad recovers, he can talk about his experience if he wants to.
She sounds a little bit like sometimes on House they have like the victim's child come in and they like are just delusional about like what their father / parents were doing. That's kind of what this sounds a little bit like. She's just trying to make like excuses for his actions, etc.
Damn, hater, but true.
For me, and I don't want to like get into details more than that really, because it's too hard on my family, and I don't want to. So my experience with akathisia, for me, it hit for the first time 2 weeks after.
Oh my God, he found the meme.
About the looking cooler, yeah. The rest is true.
Isn't it addictive and dangerous?
Pretty much all the drugs I prescribe are addictive and dangerous. The only difference with this one is it's completely legal.
He told him to smoke cigarettes. Epic.
Holy shit.
Lexapro in 2015.
You're like House.
True.
And I'm like, you're the group of people.
The real question is, are you going to be a Wilson? Or are you going to be a, oh my God, the black guy?
Chase?
No, not Chase, not Dr. Cameron,
Is it W? Is it Foreman?
Foreman! Are you going to be a Wilson or a Foreman?
I'll be a Wilson.
Wow.
After going on a ketogenic diet that I kind of randomly went on when I went on an elimination diet that just happened to be ketogenic, I cut out almost everything, like meat and vegetables. And that put my depression into remission. My depression went away. I could feel it go away one day, about 3 months into the diet. And I thought, I'm never going to take another pill again. And I stopped everything. That depression, even on the Lexapro, was so debilitating that when I started doing dietary intervention, testing it out and removing things, I focused on my arthritis, which was crippling. I had joints replaced from it because I thought that was the easier thing to fix, and that there was no way dietary intervention was going to touch something as severe as that depression that runs in my family. That's how you know the Lexapro wasn't fixing the depression, because I felt the depression go away on the ketogenic paleo diet I was on, kind of like meat and vegetables and a bit of fruit, while on Lexapro.
I also, not to get into this, like, I feel like there are four big things. I've said this before. This is very boring. I think for a lot of health, it's very boring. But there's like four things. You've got your diet. Make sure you're getting a healthy balance of colorful foods and you're hitting your macros, okay? Your micros and your macros, okay? You've got sleep. Make sure you're getting 8 hours of sleep a night if you can. You've got your exercise, whether that's your 10,000 steps, some form of light strength training. And then you've got your socialization. Make sure that you're out and talking to people and seeing people and like having social friend groups or whatever. That this is like a huge like if any of these things start to fall dramatically out of balance, that like you should probably try to bring these things into balance. If you have to take some kind of psychiatric medication or do some other huge intervention in your life, ideally you're doing those interventions, I think, so that you can try to bring these other four things into balance. So if you've got some like major depressive disorder and it's keeping you in bed all day and it's impacting your ability to get a healthy amount of sleep or impacting your ability to go and exercise, that like you're on your medication, but then you're trying to do those other things as well at the same time. If you, the problem that I have with people that hyper fixate on these elimination diets or like keto diets is that, one, keto and carnivore, none of these diets are automatically healthy for you. Just because you're arbitrarily restricting some macro doesn't mean that it's healthy. Like you can have a keto diet that is just like the most unhealthy in the universe.
Or you eat pork, right? Or whatever.
Sure, yeah, whatever is just not carb. Just because you're not eating a carb doesn't mean that it's automatically healthy. Same thing with vegans. I used to know vegans in California that would do this. They would eat so much junk
like
food and yeah, but it's like, oh well, it's a vegan diet, so like I'm good. You know, it's healthier than a meat diet. It's like not necessarily. And yeah, people will just do these like random dietary changes, like, oh, everything in my life is going to be fixed now. It's like, well, not necessarily. I don't know.
If anything, if you're on a diet, you should be more worried about what you're taking in because you're excluding obviously something else from like red meat or from meat in general.
Theoretically, yeah. There's just, I think that
out.
everything in the U.S. when it comes to like dieting culture is just very, very, very toxic. Like people are very quick to label like some food is good, some food is bad. And then if you restrict some arbitrary macro, then you're all of a sudden going to be healthy or whatever. We just have, I think we have a really, really bad relationship with food and dieting and everything in the U.S. But
Paleo diet I was on, kind of like meat and vegetables and a bit of fruit, while on Lexapro. So I stopped Lexapro over a 2-week period, which is basically cold turkey.
What was her dose? 2 weeks. Damn. Okay. Usually, I don't know 100% what the dates are, but I feel like if you're, especially on higher dosages of these, you titrate, I don't know if you call it titrate when you go down a dose, but usually you'll wean off over like several weeks or months, unless you're maybe on a really, really low dose, but
which was crazy after taking it for 11 years. But this was 2015, and even now doctors will wean people down in 2 to 4 weeks. If you have a doctor that suggests you wean down off of a long-term psych
taper off
in 2 to 4 weeks, run. That can literally give people neurological injuries, and that's what happened to my family from pulling the medication out too fast, although we were getting injured on the medication too. People need to hyperbolic taper, and I have links below to it, which is roughly a 10% reduction over every new dose. So if you go from 20 milligrams to 18 milligrams, then the next reduction is smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And sometimes that takes years. And sometimes people still like can't do it.
Okay, years sounds crazy.
I mean, it depends on the dose and what you're on, but years would probably be like the very, very, very far out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Developed insane sensitivities.
Is that really true? I've been off my Addy dose and I'm chilling. This is for like SSRIs or SNRIs. For amphetamines, you can basically quit that shit like cold turkey and you'll be fine.
To food, light, sound, stress, smells, chemicals, vitamins, supplements. Like my body freaked out. This is why I eventually started only eating meat. That wasn't for fun. It was because I was insane. And getting to the meat diet took me 2 years to figure out. And I suffered quite a bit, even on the paleo and ketogenic diet during that 2.5 year period. So the akathisia and the bad psych med injury symptoms felt like I was overwhelmed with a sense of impending doom that was stronger than anything you can naturally feel. And
I know he's not a medical doctor, but isn't it extremely disqualifying that a clinical psychologist doesn't know basic stuff about psychiatric medication? Maybe. I mean, the thing is, we don't really know everything that happened with Jordan Peterson. Like, it sounds like there probably was some kind of addiction issue here, but like a lot of the stuff that he was dealing with probably wasn't stuff that he would just know. Like, I'm sure that a lot of this was brought on by the extreme public pressure of being a public figure and of dealing with all the hate and and everything else that went alongside that. I'm sure probably all played into this quite a bit. Also, keep in mind that it's really, really hard to have a good perspective on yourself, even if you are a super educated person. Like, there's a reason why we don't typically want doctors treating family and friends. There's a reason why there's a saying, a lawyer that represents himself in court has a fool for a lawyer and a client, or something like that. Or he has a fool not only for his lawyer, but also for his client. Like, there's a reason why we have very, 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 very bad perspectives on ourselves. Or rather, I should even say, you have a bad perspective on yourself in time. Like, if you've ever sat down and journaled or thought about like some thoughts or feelings you've had about a thing, if you write them down and you look back on them like a week later, you can be shocked at even what your own feelings and perspectives were at the time. It's very hard to analyze yourself in the moment.
What the f was I thinking then, man?
Yeah.
I know that because, for instance,
when you're reading combined chat, can you tell if someone is a link to another commenter with a quote? I mean, I can when I read it. It won't show up on the combined chat on screen, but I see that, yeah.
last summer I was in the hospital with my newborn.
Addiction and poor diet for a long time. Don't feel bad for him because he made the decision to put himself in the political spotlight for something. Like, I mean, I feel bad for him on a medical level, but the thing that I don't like is that these people use all of their health conditions to drive like the worst, most toxic public messaging in the universe, right? Like, all of us should be doing more to empower our healthcare system to deal with issues like that. But these people spend so much time undermining it. And then they go to the most quack treatments in the world that they're recommending for other people. And then they die on it. And it's like, the fuck is going on? I say this is really toxic. No, I don't want to go. I would say they're like, if we're lucky, I don't want to go there, but it's just not good, right? The Scott Adams guy was another example. The Scott Adams he did some ivermectin treatment for the first month of his cancer, and then he eventually switched off, but he died of like prostate cancer.
Isn't another issue like, not Bill Gates, but the Apple guy?
Steve Jobs.
Like, these people do these whack treatments for like most of it, and then they'll swap over at the very end.
Too late, yeah.
Like 2 weeks, and it's like, well, they died from the treatment, you see? It's like, well, no, they probably died because they were on the quack forever.
Yep. I don't know if any of doctors in the chat had this experience, but I've had several people. At first I thought this was an exaggeration, but I've had several people that work in healthcare as doctors and as nurses tell me that the saddest thing that they saw over the COVID 2020, 2021 was people who were dying. They were on respirators, so they were probably going to die, and it was them begging for the vaccine when it was way too late at that point. I think once you hit the respirator, it was like a 20 to 30% chance of survival at that point. Like, you were probably going to die at that point. But like by that, like, you're at that point, yeah.
As for instance, last summer I was in the hospital with my newborn, and we thought she was going to die, and that was the worst thing I've ever experienced. But the stress response I experienced during antidepressant withdrawal was almost hallucinogenic. Like, it wasn't a natural stress response. That's, I guess, the best way I can describe it. It felt like I was falling into a volcano while being chased by a bear. Like, I had the physical sensation sometimes that I was falling. And there were days when the only thing that felt soothing was wrapping my arms around me. This was like more of the akathisia symptoms, and rocking back and forth to try to calm down, or stamping my feet, or like shaking my hands. It felt like severe restless legs, but also in my arms and body. Everything I saw was pixelated. I couldn't see color properly. I felt like I was in the upside down in the show Stranger Things. I couldn't listen to music. Music hurt my ears. There were days I couldn't watch.
Like, I'm curious, like, how much of this is related to drug-related stuff? Like, I'm sympathetic to people that want to go outside of the pharmaceutical industry or outside of the medical stuff if everything has failed you. But like, these people will either try nothing or barely try the medical stuff, and then they'll start doing crazy side effect stuff, and it's like, Jesus, I don't know.
Watch TV even. I couldn't lay in bed and watch TV. I just had to lay in a dark room and try to not panic. There wasn't a comfortable position I could get into. Light hurt my eyes, sound hurt my ears. My sense of smell was heightened. I sprouted full-on allergies to things I'd never been allergic to. At the time, I was so unaware that stopping Lexapro...
Is she lying about the autoimmune stuff? I mean, I don't know, but I would assume so, unfortunately. Like I said, there's always like a basket of things that code together: metabolic issues, mitochondrial issues, ketogenic diet, autoimmune disease stuff. Like it's always just thrown together, and it's always like vague autoimmune diseases or autoimmune diseases that I don't even know if they actually exist or whatever. Like I think she's got one SIRS. What does she call it? It might be a real one. I don't know if I believe any of it. Systemic inflammatory response syndrome is a severe, nonspecific inflammatory response to bodily insults like trauma, infection, burn, pancreatitis. It's always going to be these vague, undiagnosed or self-diagnosed things. Like, I don't know.
Full-on allergies to things I'd never been allergic to. At the time, I was so unaware that stopping Lexapro could cause these symptoms that I thought it was my autoimmune disorder somehow, or sudden extreme food sensitivities because I had limited my diet to a paleo keto diet, which obviously doesn't make any sense. You don't cut things out and then when you reintroduce them, you hallucinate. Like, that's not a thing that happens. The main thing that flared up my neurological injury were foods and preservatives in foods. And then for Dad, his symptoms when they got really bad years ago and more recently were more severe than that. We're not on an all-meat diet for fun. We're on an all-meat diet because we've been left with extremely long-lasting sensitivities and neurological injuries from these medications. And Dad's more sensitive than me. Maybe because he was older or on SSRIs longer, and because of the clonazepam for sure. So that's a brief description of my experience with akathisia and psych med withdrawal. It lasted 2.5 years for me, and it only started to go away when I switched from the paleo, dairy-free keto diet to only eating meat. So in the middle of that antidepressant.
Yeah, but I don't even know. Is there an episode where she talks about it more in depth? Like, you can do all meat diets, and surprisingly, like they're okay. They seem to be okay from what I've seen. But you have to be eating like a huge variety of meats to do it. Like you have to be eating like liver and like other stuff. It can't just be like steaks and sirloins all day. It has to be stuff that's giving you like a huge variety of micronutrients.
It's like I don't know what the English word is, the muelish organs, yeah.
Withdrawal years ago now. After a period of not sleeping from a reaction to a preservative called sodium metabisulfite, Dad was prescribed clonazepam. And most of you guys know this. He didn't take it for fun. He took it because he hadn't slept in like 3 weeks. And I know that's true because I had we both ate the same thing that had sodium metabisulfite in it. And I had a similar response, but very horrifying, less severe though, where I threw up and then I didn't sleep well for about 3 weeks. And it was horrible, horrible. He was pale, near anaphylaxis, couldn't really breathe. That was one of those weird allergies that popped up that neither of us had before stopping medication. I didn't have food allergies before stopping those meds. Neither did he. Insomnia so severe you do not sleep can be part of having a psych med induced neural.
Wait, what is this? Hold on.
You take any vitamin?
No, I eat beef and salt and water. That's it. And I never cheat. Ever. Nothing.
Soda, no wine.
I like this. I don't believe this. He's lying. That's just not for any of the reading that I did on the meat diet stuff. It can't just be like the basic that you find like at a McDonald's or whatever. It just can't be.
Drink club soda.
It's still water.
Oh, it's not. Look, there's club soda, which is really bubbly. Mm-hmm. There's Perrier, which is sort of bubbly. There's flat water, and there's hot water. Disclaimer number 2. I am not recommending this to anyone. However, I have had many, many people come up to me on the tour and say, I've lost like 100 pounds. I think, what? You lost 100 pounds?
You take any vitamins?
No.
Neurological injury. Glutamate skyrockets when GABA systems are damaged because GABA is what counteracts glutamate. And we don't really understand a lot of what's happening, but severe insomnia is discussed a lot amongst people with psych med injuries. I had a hard time sleeping for years. Even after my antidepressant withdrawal, neurological injury went away.
Does that mean that he doesn't cook with anything either? Like no butter?
I don't know. Who the fuck knows? I don't even believe what they said in there. So.
Lion diet. I still have a hard time sleeping. Like that's still my probably most sensitive area, although it's manageable. I'm fine. But I use white noise, a cold room, an eye mask, earplugs.
How do you or how can you try to get through to things like this? My mother also basically can't eat anything because she says it makes her sick or feel strange or get headaches and brain fog. What could really be going on?
Psychosis?
Well, I mean, there are real conditions or syndromes that we just don't know the underlying things of. Like it might be something going on. Like, I don't know.
Something's still off. And I'm sure it's from the lingering damage SSRIs did. Dad's doctor prescribing him clonazepam.
I did keto and lost 100 pounds. It is a weight loss cheat code, but it is also not healthy, and you'll end up with deficiencies. I mean, you can do keto and not be like unhealthy, but like there's like, I don't know how the chart works. I don't know what's the midwit position or what's not the midwit position. Like in some ways you can, like, the says it's calories in, calories out. The middle guy says you have to carefully balance everything. And then like the really intelligent guy says it's calories in, calories out. But you can do an inverse of this where the dumb guy says you have to balance everything. And then the midwit says it's just calories in, calories out. And then the really smart guy says you have to balance everything. Cause like it kind of is only calories in, calories out, but there's a lot of things that make that easier or not easier to do. So like, in my personal opinion, like the reason why ketogenic diets are so good for losing weight is because so much really bad food is automatically not on the table for consideration if you're cutting out carbohydrates. Like it just takes away so much dog food from you. I don't know. I don't believe I've seen any research or there's like some magic and when you burn ketones, it's cleaner and doesn't pollute the atmosphere and your cells are happy and they're all giving each other high fives as they pass by each other in the bloodstream. I don't know if I believe in that. I don't think there's ever been strong research for that. I think ketogenic diets are shown to help alleviate some conditions. Like if you're pre-diabetic, I think you can come back from that because you're not consuming a bunch of sugars and all that. But like, I don't think it's magic, but I think it just helps you not eat a lot of garbage food. Just like time restricted eating stuff. Like if you're not eating, if you have a 6-hour window to eat, it's not that it's magically doing something for you. It's that most of the shit that you eat early in the morning or most of the shit that you're eating past like 9 p.m. is probably dog shit for you anyway. So having some arbitrary rule that makes it so you don't eat that is probably good.
Pam for insomnia due to the undiagnosed SSRI withdrawal, or more aptly described as neurological injury, injured him further. And that's how he ended up with full-blown akathisia for about 2 years after realizing the clonazepam.
Oh, epilepsy as well. For some reason, I've heard that ketogenic diets can help epileptic people as well.
Injured him further. And that's how he ended up with full-blown akathisia for about 2 years after realizing the clonazepam was causing issues after his doctor raised the dose of clonazepam when my mom was diagnosed with cancer and given 8 months to live.
Jesus.
All this stuff sounds crazy dramatic, but over the last 6 years, I've talked to hundreds and read thousands of stories of people who experience injuries from psych medications that sound like that. And these aren't out of the ordinary for those people. I wouldn't go into all this detail, except I really do want you guys to understand that as horrible as this is, what's worse is this isn't rare. People who get injured by these don't have a voice, really. They're too sick to have a voice. But I've talked to and been sent stories from thousands of people that are stuck in this hell. SSRI prescriptions and benzodiazepine prescriptions long-term are super common. And the majority of people who take them, especially long-term, have withdrawal or neurological injury from them. It's almost always misdiagnosed as recurrence of their symptoms because doctors will use the same words to describe it.
I don't know what that means. The withdrawal is misdiagnosed as a recurrence of their symptoms. I feel like withdrawal things are going to be different than the symptoms that you were originally prescribed the medication for, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
And then these poor people end up on 2 or 3 more medications to stabilize their worsening mental illness when it's really neurological damage from the medications themselves. Most psychiatrists are completely inequipped to handle this. They don't even know about this. They certainly aren't taught about this in medical school. Most people don't know it exists. When it happens in families, like a lot of the time these people are outcast because people can't understand why they're acting the way they're acting.
Like I don't know about this. It would be interesting if these people actually brought on real doctors to chat with instead of like the 1% rebels who disagree with everybody else in the medical community, because I feel like this is a thing that a lot of doctors do talk about. And how much better would it be for society if people like Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson did bring on real doctors that had real training, that were standing in line with 98% of the medical community to talk about the issues that are dangerous. Like, this is one of those areas where Joe Rogan and them could be a really great resource for the average person to listen to these things being spoken about. But instead, you just bring on these renegade doctors, oftentimes who have been barred from practice or are selling their own specialized treatment, and then they're going to tell you that, like, did you know that nobody in medical school learns about the endocrine system? None of these guys even know that hormones can affect the body. Did you know that in psychiatric, none of these guys even know about withdrawal? They don't know that if they prescribe these drugs that they can have bad side effects. Nobody even knows about this. Like, okay, Jesus, really? Nobody? I feel like this is, they talk about literally all the time, but okay.
And I'll be the first to say, when I first took a Celexa, it felt like it worked. I felt my shoulders drop. I felt like I could breathe again deeply. I stopped panicking. I stopped having suicidal thoughts, and my OCD disappeared. That was when I was 11, but I remember it vividly. And I remember how I felt like before I started taking them. But by the time I was 13, I was certainly still depressed. I stayed on them because I thought, oh my gosh, if this is how I feel with medication, imagine how bad it is without it. But what ended up happening is I got more and more mentally ill over the years, was diagnosed with bipolar type 2, had a seizure from Wellbutrin when that was added in, suffered from severe restless legs that was really intolerable, that I thought was part of having an autoimmune disorder or something. I didn't know it was associated with SSRIs. And I just ended up getting worse and worse and worse. I just always thought I would be even worse without the medications. That wasn't true. What I needed to focus on was mitochondrial health, really. So I'm going to get into
What? Okay.
that now.
My organelles, dog. My organelles.
Mitochondrial dysfunction is like ketogenic research. In 5 years, it's going to be mainstream.
Yeah.
Like ketogenic therapies are moving into the mainstream. Thank goodness. There's mounting evidence that dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, long COVID, and those weird chronic diseases that people get that are hard to treat and kind of fringe, but most definitely exist, like chronic fatigue, Lyme, POTS, MCAS, like those kind of things, that have this large array of seemingly unrelated symptoms that include things like chronic fatigue, depression, brain fog, anxiety, chronic pain, lightheadedness, weird chemical and food sensitivities are due to mitochondrial dysfunction because that impacts your whole body and your brain. 10% of us by weight are mitochondria. So when I talk about neurological injuries, what I'm talking about in your brain, 10% of us by weight are mitochondria.
Is that true? It could be true. That just sounds crazy to me. Wait, link me that. I just don't believe that. But it might be true. I don't have a basis for thinking it's not true. I would imagine that I feel like 95% of our weight would be like the cytoplasms of cells, like just all the, whatever that stuff that's floating in there for nutrients for floating organelles or whatever. Are we 10% mitochondria? I need to see this. Maybe mitochondria is denser than the other organelles. Then one day, while casually browsing through the text of my biology classroom, I came across a fact that forever changed the way I felt about this little organelle. Mitochondria amount to approximately 10% of an adult human's body weight. I can't believe that. There's no shot. I don't believe it. I don't even know if I would believe it if I saw it in a textbook. That's just unbelievable to me. Their source for this is a book called Power, Sex, Suicide, Mitochondria and the Meaning of Life from Lane N. You know what? I'm bored. Let's look this up. Hold on. We're going to go find this. I want to see this now. Mitochondria amount to approximately 10% of an adult human's body weight. I will be honest. I will say that the reason why this sounds unbelievable to me is because every time I see like a thing of the cell, it always looks like this. And like here's the nucleus and all of your organelles are like, here's like this, your endoplasmic reticulum. Here's like some ribosomes. Here's your mitochondria. It looks like that. But maybe if it's the case that you're like, here's your mitochondria, actually. Yeah, maybe I can believe that. I want to look this up, though. Hold on. Okay. What is this book? Power, Sex, Suicide, Mitochondria, and the Meaning of Life. If it weren't for mitochondria, scientists argue, we'd all still be single-cell bacteria. By Nick Lane. What do they cite for that 10% number? He's a British biochemist and writer. He's a professor of evolutionary biochemistry. His books have won several awards. He's the author of popular science books and many articles on the origin of life, hydrothermal vents, evolution, and cellular biology. He won the 2015 Biochemical Society Award and the Michael Faraday Prize in 2016. Wait, where in this book does that 10% thing? Oh, wait, they should have a page number, right? Hold on. They don't have a page number. Oh, hold on. I found one sec. What is this? The example depending on the metabolic demand of that particular cell. Metabolically active cells, such as those in the liver, kidneys, muscles, and brain, have hundreds or thousands of mitochondria, making up some 40% of the cytoplasm. The egg cell, or oocyte, is exceptional. It passes on around 100,000 mitochondria to the next generation. In contrast, blood cells and skin cells have very few or none at all. Sperm usually have fewer than 2. All in all, there are said to be 10 million billion mitochondria in an adult human, which together constitute about 10% of our body weight. I guess this is just his estimate, I guess. Page 385. Wait, I was on page 17. Hold on, what's on page 385? Hold on. It's page 47 of the PDF only file. Yeah, I already saw that. Fuck, he doesn't cite anything for that. Maybe that's just his estimate? Okay, whatever. We'll take it. We'll take it as true for now, I guess. Until we do our own research on it.
Do your own research.
Our own study.
Seemingly unrelated symptoms that include things like chronic fatigue, depression, brain fog, anxiety, chronic pain, lightheadedness, weird chemical.
No way it's true. It just feels very not true to me, but I mean, I don't really have any way of... It's not like I have an intuitive basis for what weighs what in the cell, I guess.
and food sensitivities are due to mitochondrial dysfunction, because that impacts your whole body and your brain. 10% of us by weight are mitochondria. So when I talk about neurological injuries, what I'm talking about is mitochondrial dysfunction that manifests like a neurological injury. This is pretty cutting edge research, and I've linked papers below so people can read more about it. In the previous kind of announcement videos, I talked about how whatever was going on with Dad had been diagnosed as SIRS. That's still true. He definitely has SIRS. Otherwise, the mold exposures he experienced wouldn't have caused neurological symptoms. That's chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and is almost like mold-induced illness. I think that the genetic predisposition to mold illness is likely what caused the severe mental illness that ran in my family that was then treated with medication. I talked about how it felt spiritual, and it does. It's been hellish. I know, like, other people going through really stressful periods with sick families, like, know what those periods of time are like, and like, it's hellish. My daughter last summer was hospitalized the same day as my dad. That seems odd. There's a biological basis for what's going on with Dad, and we finally know what it is, but I do think there was a spiritual element, or is. I'd also say if mentally ill, desperate people are given medication that's supposed to ease their suffering that ends up nearly killing them when they stop, or even while they're on it, and then they can't stop, I would say that's evil.
There's also this weird thing. It's kind of funny because you're seeing this play out, like, actually, like, word for word. Sometimes people make this claim that, you know, more of us are dying of cancer. And then one of the counter retorts to this is like, yeah, sure, and we have more chronic illness. But in some ways, that's a good thing, because it used to be that, like, people suffering, like, type 1 diabetes is an example, right? Like, people suffer with type 1 diabetes chronically more than they ever did in the past. But that's because in the past, if you had this, you would just die, you know? So
Yeah, you wouldn't even know why. You'd just be dead.
Now, to caveat, there are some forms of cancers that are rising for even young people. I don't remember which one was brought up, but there was at least
Bowel
one.
cancer, I think.
Maybe. It might be rectal cancers. There's some that are brought up that are rising for young people, so that's not the explanation for that there. But just to bring that up, because it's funny, because the thing that she's talking about, that, like, well, this medication is really bad because it has these horrible side effects. It sounds like she's saying she was suicidal at a really early age and she took this medication and it helped. So, like, it could have been that she was literally going to kill herself or die at an earlier age, and now she's alive, and now she might be dealing with side effects related to weaning off the medication, but that doesn't necessarily make the medication bad or evil. So I don't know. Colorectal cancer, gotcha.
Have you guys heard of post-SSRI sexual dysfunction? It's way more common than people realize too. And podcasters are starting to talk about it, which is good.
Like, this is another thing. And again, this might just be because all the girls I talk to are horny, or because of my age class, or what. But, like, sexual side effects related to SSRIs are one of the, like, most talked about things, at least for young people, when it comes to taking any of these medications. And sometimes I feel like these people are just retreading the oldest and most well-tread, I guess, ground. That is like, yeah, everybody talks about this. Everybody, like, welcome to the modern discussion on SSRIs and these types of medications.
But it causes seemingly permanent genital numbness and anhedonia.
I don't know necessarily about that, but
So emotional numbness.
Genital what?
It
Numbness.
makes people suicidal
numbness.
because they can't feel anything. And that can happen from short-term use to some people of these medications. Finasteride one of them, SSRIs, any medication that can cause things like that, akathisia, PSSD, that level of suffering is evil, I think.
Okay.
I do think our family has been attacked spiritually because I cannot understand the level of suffering.
you also have to keep in mind, like, well, what, like, at an epidemiological level, what are the percentages of people that are having these side effects? Because that's important to consider too, right? Like, if it's a rare side effect, or even if it's semi-common, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40%, 40% would be quite common. Like, you have to weigh that against the whatever disease you're treating too, right? Whatever.
That I've been through, let alone my dad's been through, and my whole family, without it making more sense through a spiritual lens. Oh, thank God I'm a Christian.
Okay.
Anyway, away from the spiritual part. So the association between SIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, or basically mold-induced illness, ketogenic diets, like the carnivore diet, and psych med-induced neurological injury. How do they connect together? Mitochondria. Mold causes mitochondria to hibernate to protect themselves and shut down.
Is that true? I've never heard that before, but okay.
They
Damn
connect together,
mold.
mitochondria. Mold causes mitochondria to hibernate to protect themselves and shut down, which causes this weird array of symptoms I talked about. Psych meds cause mitochondrial dysfunction. I've linked the papers that manifest as a neurological injury. And a ketogenic diet gives mitochondria an alternate fuel that helps them heal and helps them work, which is why it's so massively useful and why we're just eating meat. I'm going to put this video out and people are going to tell me I'm reaching, but this is now well-established research. Mitochondrial dysfunction research is blowing up right now. I'm going to talk about it more on my podcast because it's promising. It's really promising. And understanding what's wrong is really the only way to figure out health problems. Like I said, there are papers linked below, so you don't have to just take my word for it.
Thank God.
And I would have made this video shorter, but I wanted to address everything I could. In a fit of frustration and anger at the situation and how unfair it is, I put a website together that I linked below called prescribed-harm.com, which goes into the research about psychiatric medications and what they're doing to people. And if you're watching this video and have been injured by these medications, you can write your story on that website too, and I'll post it. Or maybe that website will be useful to explain to family members what's going on.
Thank God.
Or doctors who don't usually know what's going on.
Fucking
or leave a
retarded
comment below to
doctors,
show
bro.
people this isn't uncommon. These injured people are so hurt, like I said, that they can't usually have their story told because they're just trying to survive. And they're basically disabled and traumatized and gaslit and misdiagnosed.
Jesus. All the words.
I'm going to be jumping up and down for a while, probably until this is dealt with properly, about the dangers these medications produce, until things are changed, or at least until it's common knowledge that people need to be aware of this before they start the medication. Pharmaceutical companies rename these neurological injuries and psych med side effects and use language to hide the symptoms. Like there's malevolence here too. Like calling akathisia restlessness may cause restlessness. Calling akathisia restlessness makes me want to hurt people. And maybe that's pregnancy hormones talking, but it's criminal really. There are no long-term studies on these medications, yet most people take them for more than 5 years and are told that they're safe, or at least safer than their original mental issue. Actually, there's one long-term study, and you know what it shows? That 60% of people have a recurrence of symptoms. That's what they got from the study, and need to go back on the medication. You know what's stupid about that?
What?
They don't differentiate between recurrence and withdrawal. And withdrawal is almost always misdiagnosed as recurrence, even though the array of symptoms with withdrawal is generally way more severe and includes pain syndromes and sensitivities and new symptoms. They're just like, well, you just got worse. Nope. The industry is so crooked. It's a travesty that now that there's actual solid research linking ketogenic diets to improving mental disorders, treating them, giving the brain the energy that it needs to not be sick. I linked metabolicminds.com below, which is a great site about ketogenic diets and mental illnesses, run by scientists. And that diet, or the carnivore diet, should be first-line treatment for mental illness, given they will work and actually treat the energy deficiency that's causing mental illness, but especially because these psych medications cause mitochondrial dysfunction long-term that manifests as a neurological injury.
And make you susceptible to mold injuries.
And is
This
very
guy's
difficult,
dead.
if not impossible to treat
I don't know.
Jordan
without
Peterson,
time and lifestyle
he's dead as
interventions like
fuck.
ketogenic diet, sun, sleep, no stress, like serious stress regulation. So to end this rant, and apologies, I can see it's been 33 minutes, but I really did want to cover everything because it's a lot. So prayers are much appreciated still.
No prayers for you.
All this suffering, we hope, leads to more awareness so other people can avoid this. Withdrawal is a silly name for what happens to people, because withdrawal should be solved by the original medication, right? If you're in withdrawal, you go back on the original medication, you're not in withdrawal anymore, all your symptoms go away.
Oh, shrimple ass! Shrimple
This guy's
ass!
still eating meat, nothing but meat,
Who knows? Who knows?
mainlining
What happened?
beef tartare.
Here, this is a neurological injury. I don't want to promise another update. I'm grumpy and pregnant, and I don't want to be on the hook publicly for another update. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about mitochondrial dysfunction and psych med, this travesty of psych med injuries. But I've been barely surviving with the pregnancy hormones and stress. Thank goodness for my husband, who's just a rock. But I'm not sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. At least this week, it appears I'm not crying constantly. Being in the second trimester probably helps that. But that's it for updates about Dad until he's back. Now that we know it's a neurological injury and we know we need time
Now
for him
we
to
know.
recover.
Now we've got it.
And we can speed it up by not provoking a reaction. Like I said, prayers are much appreciated for my dad and for my brother and my mom and me, and all the people helping us to help him through this. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, but people need to know these medications and what they can do to people, especially long-term, but not just long-term. And they need to be aware of these before
Which
taking
medication?
a medication. So check out everything I've linked below
Prozac
if you
and
want.
every
I spent a decent amount of
antipsychotic, I
time
guess? I don't
trying
know.
to find good articles. And my recent study that I posted that's being done on the carnivore versus keto versus standard American diet and rheumatoid arthritis and IBD, run by a research team, is linked below, and prescribed-harm.com for more information on how to safely taper to avoid neurological injury and to read other people's experiences. So thank you guys for listening and thank you for the support. And I'm really sorry for anyone else damaged by these horrible medications,
Sorry.
but there's hope. You can recover with time. Ketogenic diets are unbelievably helpful. And it's about avoiding making it worse, because bodies and brains do want to recover. So thanks for listening, and I'll see some of you on my podcast.
I don't think I had any happiness at all for 3 years, pretty much.
And what
It
is-
was dire. Well, my wife, she spent a year hovering on the brink of death in a variety of different ways. Before that, my daughter had catastrophic health problems, which have mostly resolved. And then I got extremely ill. So we've been in, and at the same time, we were facing social pressure of like an unparalleled magnitude. People trying to, you know, bring this enterprise to a halt, I suppose. If that's probably the right way to think about it. Most of that time, I was hoping that I would die. I've been grateful for the good things that have happened to me, but I don't think I was grateful enough before just for mundane normality, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, you think you don't have everything you could have, and perhaps that's true, but if you can sit down and breathe, there's lots of people who don't have that.
Yeah.
Shrimp
He's
Laz.
dead. He's dead. I don't mean like as a threat. I'm just speculating.
What are you gonna do?
Nothing. Don't eat meat. Well, I mean, I guess you could say don't only eat meat and benzos.